What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stucky.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this, our Champions League Futures Preview episode, is BJ Cunningham and our old friend, Anthony DeBundo of The Ringer. And together, the three of us are going to go through a big picture preview of the Champions League, give out our favorite futures bets to win it all, to finish between 9th and 24th, to finish at the bottom of the league phase, to qualify from the league phase, all that. It's a brand new era for the Champions League. I think it's a little confusing. We'll try our best to suss it out. I should say confusing from a betting perspective, but we'll get through all of it. But before we get into it, let's just quickly take a look at the odds. Wouldn't you know, Manchester City are the clear favorite at plus 200. Then it's Real Madrid at plus 350. Arsenal, third favorite, 8-1. Then it's Bayern at 12-1, along with Barcelona. Liverpool right behind them, 14-1. PSG, 20-1. Inter Milan, 25-1. Bayer Leverkusen, 25-1. They just had their first loss in a very long time in the Bundesliga over the weekend. Our old favorites, Atletico Madrid, are 25-1 as well. So are Dortmund, Juve, 40, AC Milan, 40, Atalanta, 50-1, Aston Villa, 66-1. Then we get into triple digits with RB Leipzig, Sporting, and Lille at 100-1. So is Benfica, Monaco, PSV Eindhoven, 150-1, Stuttgart, 150-1, Feyenoord, 200-1. So is Salzburg, Bologna, Girona, and then it's Celtic at 250-1. Then we'll cut it there. Right off the bat, BJ. Now, like I said, it is a new era in the Champions League. All 36 teams are put into one league, and you're drawn against certain opponents, 4 home, 4 away. Top 8 automatically qualify for the round of 16. Then if you finish between 9th and 24th, you play in a playoff to then qualify for the round of 16. Teams that finish in the bottom 12 are eliminated. Any outrights jump out to you?
Well, it changes how you approach betting outrights, right? Because the seeding is going to matter as we go throughout this table and where you're placed in the knockout stage, right? So the number 1 seed, for lack of a better term, should be the best type of seed because you're going to get drawn against the winner of I believe it would be the 17 and 18 type match, or basically the most favorable type of matchup that you can get. Obviously, the approach that I have kind of from the futures market, I have one outright that I'm going to bet. But I think the way to approach it, is kind of just waiting and seeing how things play out. I think might be a better strategy on a lot of these teams. If you want to bet long shots, like obviously, if you want to bet somebody in the 150 to 200 range, if they make the knockout stage or even like the playoff, they're going to be shorter than that. So if you want to bet outrights in terms of long shots, I think the time to do that is now if you think that they can finish inside the top 24. For me, if I had one bet to make on an outright, it would be Inter at 25-1. They did get put in a little bit of a difficult schedule from pot 1 and pot 2. They drew Leipzig, City, Arsenal, and Leverkusen. But beyond that, they're going to be really heavy favorites against Red Star Belgrade, Young Boys, Monaco, and Sparta Prague. So they have 4 very, very favorable matchups that they should be big favorites and potentially win. And they're obviously going to be live underdogs in their other matches and might be favored at home in their other ones. But we know Inter to be an amazing tournament team. They obviously won Coppa Italia last year. They went to the Champions League final 2 years ago. They put up incredible underlying metrics in Serie A. But what Inzaghi does with this 3-5-2 and being able to play without the ball, being able to be dangerous in transition, sets them up so well for a tournament like this, because there's going to be a lot of scenarios for a lot of these teams that like to control possession in their domestic leagues, where they're not going to be able to do that. And Inter is set up really, really well to be able to play that way. They didn't lose anybody in the summer. In fact, they got a little bit better. They're still the same team that we saw. And even if you go back to the last Champions League, I know they got knocked out in the round of 16. They should have put Atletico away in the first leg. They should have won that first match 2 or even 3-0. So I think Inter's set up really well here. They did get a little bit of a tough schedule. So you saw their odds kind of drop back to 25-1. So that would be, if I were to bet one outright, that's where I would go. And my other one that kind of goes along the lines of this, I mean, Liverpool's looked amazing so far in the Premier League. I know it's only 3 matches, but like they have looked so impressive under Slot, taking, what Liverpool was missing under Klopp, which is control and transition defense, fixing those 2 things, and then not taking away what Liverpool was good at, which is playing in transition. So, but they got a really, really tough schedule. They drew only one team outside of Europe's top 5 league, and it's PSV, who is the champions of Netherlands. I mean, they've got, Real Madrid, Leipzig, Leverkusen, AC Milan, Lille, PSV, Bologna, and Girona. Like, that's a really, really tough Champions League schedule. They're sitting at 14-1 right now. I think you can probably wait on a better price of that as we see how the seeding plays out, see what the potential draws are for the round of 16. So if I had one bet, it would be Inter 25-1, but I really would be watching that Liverpool number. If that gets to potentially 20-1, I think I'm going to have to hit Liverpool at that number. So that's kind of, I think, the approach that I'm taking to this new Champions League.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, especially near the top. Like I don't really see any of these numbers getting blasted at all. We'll see how this thing goes. The one team I have some interest in here, Anthony, is Aston Villa. I don't think the schedule is too daunting, and I trust Unai Emery. Like, and Villa's been kind of, I guess, as expected in the Premier League so far. Exciting, a little back and forth, and I think that they've got the ceiling to beat teams and be a tough one to dispatch in knockout stages, and they should definitely get through. I mean, if they're not one of the top 24 teams in this competition, I'd be a little shocked, especially with Emery at the helm. They're 66-1. I think that number is playable in my eyes. Like I said, the schedule is not terrible. They do have Bayern and Juve, but those are both at home. Their away matches are Leipzig, Bruges, Young Boys, and Monaco. You'd expect them to make some hay in that situation. They should be pretty decided favorites against Celtic and Bologna. So Villa's my favorite. If I had to go to the top, I mean, the Liverpool number, BJ, I think it's interesting you're saying that you can wait there. I guess the schedule is, I actually could see a situation where it shortens before the Champions League, like gets into like the middle stages because of how good they've looked, or maybe over the next week as people are playing these futures. But you're probably right. Like as the tournament goes on, you'll probably be able to stick around there.
I mean, the thing is like, they've looked great, but it also is Ipswich, Brentford, and Manchester United, right? Like they've got Nottingham Forest out of the break, and then they got to go to AC Milan for their first match. So that will be a very good list.
Yeah, that's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Anthony, welcome back. Anything you see at the top of the show here that piques your interest?
Yeah, so I think the case for Villa is what they just did to Arsenal. And I know they lost that match, but I thought they were pretty good. Out of possession, Ramsey and Rodgers have kind of come out of nowhere and been the replacements for, they were in a weird PSR place where they had to sell some players, including Douglas Luiz. And we were like, well, what's the midfield going to look like? And Onana's bet in really well. And Morgan Rodgers has looked awesome. Most people thought he was the best player on the pitch in that match. And then they had a very comfortable win against Leicester. So I think there's a case that Villa is actually better than they were last year. We all know that they overperformed to get to fourth, but they were pretty average overall and kind of got a little bit fortunate to get to top 4. And now what if they're just better? So 66-1, we know Emery's knockout pedigree from the Villarreal days and the success he had there. But I think my team is going to be a team that this podcast has hated for a couple of years. And I'm now in on at the current price and the current iteration of the team. And it's Juventus at 40-1. We were no fans of Max Allegri. We were no fans of Juve because they played this awful style. They never had the ball. They would hang on for dear life and just try to beat teams 1-0 all the time. Well, they played 3 matches in Serie A, and they haven't played a tough schedule, but They did hold Roma scoreless on Saturday or Sunday, and I think it's notable that they've conceded 1.1 xG in 3 matches, and it's a very different way of defending. They're defending with the ball, and I think that is a more effective strategy. And they really went out and bought an impressive midfield and basically tried to shore that up. Like Locatelli's been there and has been their kind of guy for a while, but they go out and they add Cope Miners from Atalanta, who was pretty much one of the key players for their Europa League run, Douglas Luiz, and Kefren Turam, who 2 years ago everybody wanted. Last year kind of had a down year, and now he's going for cheaper than I think a lot of people thought he was going to go for. So Juve's completely rebuilt the midfield. Even Vlahovic, another guy this podcast has not been too fond of over the years, he's had a step forward in his shot numbers last year. So I think there's a case for Juventus being better than we think, and I really like Thiago Motta. So Juve 40-1, I think, should be priced in that tier with Inter and Atleti and Leverkusen. I think they're closer to those teams than they are to the teams they're priced with at 40-1, which is closer to like the Atalanta, Milan. I think they're better than both of those teams because of their defense being so good.
What's interesting about the betting here is it's a both disappointing format to bet and exciting because it's new, but there's no group stage, no betting. Someone to finish the top of the group or whatever. Now we're talking very much American style, finish the top 8. So BJ, we'll focus on that market next. Top 8 finish in the league stage from our friends at Bet365. Obviously, you have to lay some serious wood on teams like City, Madrid, Arsenal, Bayern, Liverpool, and Barcelona. But I do think there's room for some surprises. Anybody here that makes you want to place a bet on to finish top 8, which, like we said, it's massively important because you get a bye into the round of 16.
It's incredibly important.
Well,
yeah.
It's going to be hard, though, to figure out this. So you mentioned the seeding. So it's kind of like, the 1 or the 2 will play 15 through 18. Mm-hmm. And the 3 or 4 will play, 13 or 14 or 7, 9. But like when the gaps are this small between the teams, like we were looking at it and like it could be 16, 15 points to get like 7th, and like 13 points you could be in 12th.
Right.
Like, that's how close it. So it's going to be really hard, I think, to kind of game out the knockout bracket. But in terms of the top 8, like the schedule, I think is super. Some of it is super imbalanced.
The schedule, you have to take into consideration the schedule, and I think teams are going to want to paste and just absolutely paste the doormats.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, which is
and every match.
I get that they would want it. Yeah.
There's no longer like City's won. If City has won, 5 or even 6 matches, and they get to their final 2, seeding is going to matter, and there's still teams that are going to do it. So like every single match is going to matter, which is going to transition to like. Do they put less emphasis on the Premier League or do they put more emphasis on the Champions? It's going to be very weird to figure out. So we're all new in this. So, things are going to be a little bit, it's hard to, the point is like, it's hard to get behind like a load of futures right now when we just have a lot of unknowns, honestly.
Well, I think that's why we do the January thing every year, right? Like we picked a couple teams in January. We've gotten like half the season and we have an idea of who they're going to play and then we pick our teams.
Exactly. And so, the Champions League is this group format is going to run through the end of January. I think the final day is January 29th, I think is what it is. So, once we get to the knockout stage, then it'll get really fun once we figure out the seedings. But I think, and it kind of goes back to our original point of just like the betting these futures is going to kind of be more of a, go along, betting them as we go along here, as the seedings change, as we see things changing and everything like that. But in terms of top 8, I like Inter at plus 140. Like I said, they got a difficult schedule from pot 1 and pot 2, but pots 3 and 4 was very favorable to them. So plus 140 on that. I have them projected to finish 6th in my expected points table. Another one I have, Anthony's not going to like this. I like Leverkusen at plus 130.
They stink.
So they suck. They lost a match. I know, even though they created 5.5 expected goals.
Conceded like 2.5 to Gladbach.
Exactly. So here's the thing: is I truly believe that Xabi Alonso is third, fourth, maybe, in that, obviously in that top five in terms of being one of the best tactical managers in the world. And his ability of what he did with Leverkusen last season and the way they're able to build out through opponents is so impressive. And as you saw last season, nobody was able to beat them except for Atalanta. What did Atalanta do? They went with the most aggressive man-to-man press that you could ever see, and it worked. There's very, very few teams in the world that can pull that off against this team. And especially in a tournament format like this, I find it very hard to believe that some of the teams on their schedule are really going to give them a lot of problems, especially towards the bottom. They are going to face Inter and Liverpool. Those are two very difficult matches. But AC Milan, Atletico Madrid, Salzburg, Feyenoord, Sparta Prague, and Brest, that's pretty favorable for Leverkusen. And I know what Anthony's going to say is that they can't possibly have 27 stoppage time equalizers or winners in this season, but they're not going to, obviously. But there is an element to Leverkusen where if you decide to defend them deep for most of the match, that gets so freaking exhausting when they are passing the ball around you over and over and over again with their three-man combinations. And there is an element of wearing teams down that once we get to stoppage time, teams are exhausted and they're more likely to concede goals. Again, they're not going to have as many as they did last year, but I think there is an element that it could continue in that type of realm. They did put up great underlying metrics, and it's not like they were a complete luck box throughout the entire season. I mean, they were a plus 1.3 expected goal differential per 90 minutes. And the biggest thing that I saw one match from them last season, they played Bayern the second time, and they beat them 3-0. And the primary reason why they beat them 3-0 is because Xabi Alonso just switched them to a 5-3-2 and said, you know what, we're defending in a mid-block, and we're going to beat them in transition. And they did it super effectively. So having that in your bag, again, when you play a team like Liverpool or Inter or even some of the better teams as we go throughout this competition, I think sets up Leverkusen actually pretty well. And I still think they're one of the top 8 teams in the world. I've been projected to finish 7th in my expected points table. So getting them at plus money when they have quite a few favorable matches as we get beyond pot 2, I think is a decent price.
The only team in this market I had a little bit of interest in was Stuttgart at 8-1, just because the schedule's not all that daunting for them.
Favorable.
Yeah. They just caught a big break. And obviously, away matches to Juve and Real Madrid, you can probably chalk those up as losses, but their other two on the road are Red Star and Bratislava. So hopefully expect something
Michael,
out of there.
I'm going to call this right now on this podcast. Bratislava is going to play at home against City. They're probably going to be like 35 or 40-1 in that match. I'm going to guess Michael's going to be on them.
Yeah, we'll be on that
one. Yeah.
Nobody goes to Bratislava.
Yeah, nobody goes.
Fort never lose.
Yeah.
But the home games for Stuttgart are Young Boys, Sparta Prague, Atalanta, and PSG. If you can get 9 points out of that, and maybe that's asking too much, I think that 8-1 is pretty live. So, Anthony, anything here? Teams you want to back to finish inside that top 8?
Well, I mean, it's correlated to the team I just mentioned, but Juve, we could talk about the schedule now, plus 250 to finish top 8. Their schedule's not too bad. They get Leipzig in pot 1 and Man City, so they'll probably lose to City, but they get them at home. Could be interesting. Leipzig away, then their rest of their groups are pretty friendly. Benfica and Bruges is about as good of a pot 2 draw as you can possibly get. They draw PSV and Lille, so a little tougher in pot 3, and then Stuttgart and Villa in pot 4. So I think it's a pretty friendly group of teams. And to push back on the Leverkusen thing, I'm worried about their defense. I still think they're going to create plenty and score plenty, but giving up 3 to Leipzig, blowing a 2-goal lead in their first 2 matches of the season, giving up 2 XG to Gladbach, a team that we're not too fond of anymore these days, or isn't very good at least. And the end of last season, if you look at Leipzig or Leverkusen's numbers, they kind of did fall off defensively, right? They gave up 1.5 XG second leg to West Ham, 3.6 over 2 legs to Roma, almost 2 to Stuttgart, 2 to Frankfurt, conceded 3 in the final to Atalanta. So there are some red flags with the defense, and I think I'm more concerned about that than I am their attack. And of course, yes, I don't care how tired the other team is. The amount of late goals they scored was diabolical last year, and not going to continue. But I'm a little bit cooler on Leverkusen, shockingly. And I do think the schedule's tough. I mean, they have to go to Feyenoord, Atleti, and Liverpool. That's pretty tough 3 away matches in the group stage. But yeah, Juventus for me. I mean, I was interested by Inter, but then the price scared me. And PSG is probably the worst bet you could make, given how tough their bracket is.
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking to maybe bet on PSG just because the schedule's so hard, like in individual games.
Right.
But City, Bayern, Atleti, Arsenal, PSV, Girona, Stuttgart, and Salzburg is, I think they got hosed more than anybody seemingly in the draw, except maybe Bratislava.
Yeah.
Yeah, PSG's I actually, it brings up a good point. I think PSG is going to finish like mid-table in that top 24 to make a I think they'll finish between 9th and 24th, right?
And then
you're
we're all going
looking
to
at
bet them to win the thing.
and then we're exactly that's what I'm going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like we'll catch, they're 20-1 to win the tournament now. I think that you're going to catch a bigger number on that when they struggle to
Ewing theory, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Ewing theory coming through.
They're minus 190 to finish in that 9 through 24, which is kind of a high price. I think you maybe can wait on that.
Yeah, I would just wait and play them to win the tournament when they have to, when they get a matchup against Salzburg or something, and to get through. Okay. Speaking of which, so we were talking. I have
a question.
Yes.
How many teams do we think are locks to be top 8?
3.
I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say 3.
I would say 4.
I would say 4. I would say
I'm going to put Liverpool in there.
Ooh, you're going to put Liverpool in there. You're not saying my team's a lock?
No, they are. I think they are.
Okay.
So you're saying the 3 English
teams in Real Madrid.
Madrid, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Although I mean, even Real Madrid haven't looked all that good.
Yeah, they'll figure.
And their schedule, I believe, was not the easiest one in the world. I mean, their schedule is actually kind of tough. Dortmund, Liverpool, Milan, Atalanta, Salzburg, Lille, Stuttgart, and Brest. I mean, that's not the easiest schedule.
It's another team that, if you think they finish between 9th and 24th, that's another team.
Yeah, they're 3-1 to finish.
You're never going to get any value on betting Real Madrid this year.
You never know. That's probably true.
Until they're down 2 goals in the second leg against somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, the interesting thing too is we always say in these preview episodes, like there's always going to be a surprise group winner or a team that finishes second in the group of death that nobody sees coming, etc. It's really hard to see that coming here in like the top 8. That's what I would say more than anything. You could say there's 3 locks, right? Or 4 locks between City, Madrid, Arsenal. If you want to throw Liverpool in there, if you're high on Bayern Munich, you can throw them. It's really hard to see a gate crasher because the teams you'd have to beat out for those last 3 spots are just so good. That's the thing that throws cold water on the Stuttgart thing is like, they're the team that I think has a potential to come from nowhere to finish top 8 because of their schedule, but they're still only 8-1. I would much rather bigger number on that because of the teams that they have to beat out for it. Anyways.
Well, yeah, I mean, 8 matches when you're competing with the whole field versus 6 matches when you're playing.
Right.
Like, there's one overrated team and you play them twice.
Right.
All of a sudden, like the door's way more open to do that. At the top of the pool, I think there's very clearly like a bottom 3 in the top pot, and it's Dortmund, Leipzig, and PSG. So anybody who drew multiple of those teams got a very friendly draw, and Atleti's the team there that fits that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have them.
They're 16-1 to finish the top of the league phase. Atleti.
Yeah,
that's one thing I was taking.
I have them 11 to 11th in my expected points table. So.
And I think they're going to be better this year. I do think they'll take a step forward. Gallagher and Alvarez.
Yeah.
Anything? All right, that's the top 8. Anything here? I think the best market to kind of build out the logic for is this to finish between 9th and 24th. So essentially to qualify for the knockout phase to make the knockout phase. It's a really fun one to handicap. Oh, they'll be decent. They could be actually not that decent, but finish 24th. Maybe it's a team that people think like a Bayern Munich, for example, has a big reputation. They struggle in the league phase and finish 10th. BJ, anything you see of value here? There's so many different ways you can find an entry.
Not a lot.
into this.
Not a lot of markets where Celtic and Arsenal are priced next to each other.
Yeah, that's the great thing, right? Like it's just
that is the great thing about this,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I was just thinking, this came to my brain right before I was about to do my whole spiel here, Michael. But we should create a round robin for this little section here. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For me, if
Bet365 in Pennsylvania now.
No,
let's go.
Nice.
Congratulations.
I like Celtic. They're plus 162.
Oh, boy.
Nobody got an easier schedule than them by far. They have the easiest schedule of anybody. They've got two of the basement dwellers in pot 1, Leipzig and Dortmund. They drew out Club Brugge and Atalanta in pot 2. And then they go Young Boys, Dinamo Zagreb, Bratislava, and then they got to go away to Aston Villa. But, I mean, the schedule is just so freaking easy for them. And I know we've been down this road many times before with them.
The last 2 years.
Right? Last 3 years. You know, they were pretty bad in the Champions League last year when they got drawn with Atletico, Feyenoord, and Lazio.
But here's worse the year before.
Even worse, yeah, it was even worse the year before that.
They had that one half against Real Madrid.
Yes,
they did.
Yeah,
they did, and then they had that game against Leipzig at home as well, where they were playing really well, and then just gave up a goal in the 80th minute. But the thing that why Celtic struggles essentially in the Champions League is because they dominate possession, they dominate the ball in the Scottish Premier League, and that lends itself to them, only allowing half an expected goal per 90 minutes, which is the best defensive mark of anybody in their own domestic league that comes into this tournament. And Brendan Rodgers is obviously somebody that wants his team to build out of the back, press aggressively high. And when you're playing in the Champions League against teams like Atletico, Lazio, and Feyenoord, you're just not able to do that, and you tend to struggle. Well, now they're in a situation where they're going to get essentially 4 matches where they can be the ones that control possession. They can be the ones that press high and actually do that effectively. I mean, I have them favored over Young Boys, Slovan Bratislava, Club Brugge, and Dinamo Zagreb. Away to Aston Villa is a tough match. Away to Atalanta is tough. Getting Leipzig at home for a little bit of revenge because they faced them 2 years ago, and they played them very, very difficultly. So for me, it's the schedule. Getting them at plus money. I have them finishing 10th in my expected points table because of how easy this schedule really is. And that's just the biggest thing, is them being able to play the style they want to play under Rodgers against essentially 4 teams where they're going to be favored lends itself very, very favorably to just finish in 24th. We're not asking them to finish in 9th or 10th or 11th. We're just asking them to be better than a lot of these pot 4 teams. So given the schedule that Celtic has, I don't think they should be plus money to be finishing here at this 9 to 24 range. I definitely do not think they are good enough to get into the top 8. So, I mean, if you want to play 12 to 1, I'm not gonna stop you, but that needs to be closer to 20 to 1 if I'm ever gonna play it. So Celtic plus 162 is my biggest bet from this range.
Okay.
Bologna got a friendly schedule. I kind of like them.
Who's
Plus
that?
110. Bologna.
Oh yeah.
They got rated a little bit, right? They lose Xerxes, and I get that. They lose Calafiori and they lose the manager, but I mean, we've been a Fiorentina podcast in the past. And Italiano comes over, and I think they're going to be fine. And Dortmund at home, Shakhtar at home, Lille at home, Monaco at home. That's a very friendly home schedule, and that's really going to be the key. Are they going to get points at Liverpool or even at Benfica? Probably not. But I do think they're going to be competitive enough at home. You only need 8 points to probably make it to the top 24. And there are some much worse teams. I agree with BJ. I was coming on preparing to scoff at BJ's Celtic take, but I think he kind of sold me on it a little bit with how bad the bottom 4 teams are in their opponents list. Bruges, Young Boys, Zagreb, and Bratislava.
Right. You're not asking them to play,
Well,
Dortmund.
they always end up pot 3 or 4, and they play two big boys.
Right. It's just those are the teams that I think make out the best from this new format, right? It's that kind of middle class that would be the clear third best team in the groups of 4, or between 3rd and 4th. And now all of a sudden you're can you beat out these 12 teams with this schedule? And the answer is going to be plus 162 to be yes for BJ.
It's a really fun field this year because we had so many surprise top 4-5 finishes.
Yeah.
Stuttgart, Bologna, Villa, Girona. is a fun pot 4. Yeah, Brest, Monaco not as much, but Brest too.
Yeah.
How many of those 5
dude,
can
the Brest,
recreate the magic from last year?
This Brest schedule is so funny to me. I think that they're gonna be rabble rousers.
Yeah. Feyenoord's also kind of interesting, like plus 140. They obviously lose Slot, they lose Weifer and Getruda, who's now going to Leipzig.
Schedule's brutal.
But the first part of the schedule is brutal, and then once you get into the back half, it actually I think opens up a little bit when they get to play Benfica, Salzburg, Lille, Prague, and Girona. Listen, are they going to take a massive? Not a massive. They're going to take a step back now that Slot is gone. But this team was. We were getting close to a 2 expected goal differential per 90 in the Eredivisie, and they were, as we saw last season, very, very good in the Champions League group stage. So,
I'll probably bet them the first 2 matches.
Yeah, Santiago Jimenez stays.
Host Leverkusen first match.
Yeah, Jimenez stays. Like this team is. I don't know. They're kind of interesting, and I don't think they obviously, with the schedule they have, it's obviously brutal, so they're not going to finish in the top 8. But for them to be better than a lot of these teams in this range, like getting them at plus money is kind of interesting. So I'll maybe be on them. Maybe I'll wait till after this first match against Leverkusen.
All right, on to the Golden Boot. This also changes the arithmetic for this market quite a bit. Erling Haaland is your clear favorite at plus 275. Kylian Mbappe, now Real Madrid, is at 5-1. Harry Kane right behind him, 6. Mo Salah, 12-1. Vinny, 14. Robert Lewandowski, 16-1. Jude Bellingham of Real Madrid is 20-1. Julian Alvarez now at Atletico Madrid is 25-1. So is Phil Foden. Antoine Griezmann is 33-1. Darwin Nunez and Musiala also there. So is Lamine Yamal and Rodrigo at 33-1. I'll stop there because that's right before Alvaro Morata is 40-1. Will obviously be
the
in
future
there,
winner.
Even though he's at Milan now. I do have an interest in Luis Diaz of Liverpool at 80-1. I feel like he's just off and running under Slot. I think that, as BJ was saying at the top, like they do have potential to go deep into this tournament, which obviously you need. And yeah, I think that's a team that's just going to score a bunch and will absolutely pace the dregs of their schedule. So Diaz to me at 80-1 is my favorite bet. Obviously, we'll have a little bit of Morata because we just got to keep doing it until he's in MLS, and then we'll be betting him there. Anything here for you, BJ?
I like Lautaro Martinez at 42-1. You mentioned how it changes how you approach this, right? So obviously every team's going to get 8 matches, but you also have to account, okay, you wanted somebody that's going to go deep into this tournament, but you also may want those 2 extra matches when we do the playoff, right? So if we believe, I like Inter to finish in the top 8, and I believe they're going to, but with the schedule that they have, there is a potential they could finish in that 9 to 24 range. So you're basically saying like, okay, I could get an extra 2 matches, and Inter is obviously a team that's built to go deep in this tournament. So you have to kind of you have to account for both, right? Like if you're a team like City, well, you're not going to get those 2 extra matches. And then if you don't go deep in this tournament, then Haaland's not going to be able to win the Golden Boot, right? So Lautaro Martinez last season in the Champions League, in about 690s, averaged 5.5 shots per 90. That was the most of anybody in the Champions League. He only scored 2 goals, created over 5 expected goals, so drastically underperformed there. But basically, outside of Joselu, he had the best XG per 90 of anybody in the Champions League. And it kind of goes along with what I was saying about Inter, is like they're going to be in situations where obviously they're going to be a favorite and they're going to control possession, and he is the main target up top. But they're also going to be in situations where they're not going to have the ball for a majority of the match, and they're going to look to hit teams in transition. And there's really there's no better transition striker right now than Lautaro Martinez. He really can punish teams over and over again. So the shot production that he gets, not only in Champions League, but also in Serie A, makes him definitely live to win the Golden Boot, especially at 42-1. So if you're someone like me that believes Inter can go deep in this tournament, 42-1, I think is a fantastic price when he's getting, better shot production number than some of those guys at the top of the board.
I'm tempted by Kane. I think you have to consider that in this tournament, just playing every match is really important. And Harry Kane is notorious for never letting his manager ever rest him. So he's going to try to stat pad against the really bad teams. And I think where you compare that to Haaland, where he may get a rest, right? And we talked about Real Madrid and Mbappe / Vinny and kind of them not quite gelling right away. We think they'll figure it out eventually, but not too interested in them. So I do think that Kane at 6-1 is my favorite of like the top 6 or 7 guys, just because I know he's going to play every match. And if you look at Bayern's matchups, Barca, we don't think they can defend. PSG, I'm not sure they can defend. Benfica did no defending last year in Europe. And then they play Shakhtar, Zagreb, Bratislava, Villa, Feyenoord. So like it's a very friendly schedule where they play 2 of the weaker teams in the pot 1 and then 2 of the worst teams in pot 2. So I think Kane can kind of stat pad his way to a lead here. And then if Haaland, like if City's, comfortably top 3, 4, and like Haaland reaches that point in December or January every year where he needs like a couple weeks off, I feel like they're going to rest him a little bit to try to get him right for the stretch run when they go on their godlike run. And so I think Kane at 6-1 is kind of a good mix of going to score goals in the group stage, probably going to be in the tournament through the quarters and the semis, probably depending on the draw. Still think they're pretty good. And then we'll see, but that's my guy here, I think, in this market. I mean, Saka's interesting. I just don't really think Arsenal plays
he's
open.
He's not even shot production as all those other guys, honestly.
Yeah, but he is on pens.
I love him, but
the pens thing always helps for those situations.
I hope
if they make it deeper. I mean, they are the third favorite. So like they're expected to make the semis, and the matches will be there.
It will be. I mean, we obviously have more matches, so it's probably going to be double-digit goals.
Also, he could just get better.
That's true. I mean, we're probably going to see double-digit goals wins the Golden Boot, right? Mbappe had 8 goals. It was tied with Kane, I believe, last season. Now that we're adding 2 extra matches plus the 2-leg playoff, so it's probably going to be double digits to win this thing.
Okay. That brings us to the end here. Before we get out of here, BJ, any other bets that we didn't mention that you just want to throw out there?
Yeah, let's go bottom of the league phase. Bratislava is obviously your favorite. They drew an incredibly tough schedule there in terms of their transfer market value. They are very, very well bottom of all of these teams, and they're most likely to finish bottom here. But I like taking a little bit of a bigger price on young boys at 8-1. Last season, they were in a group with City, Leipzig, and Red Star Belgrade, and they conceded 15.3 expected goals, which was second worst only to Benfica. They created only 6.4 expected goals, and 3.9 of them came against Belgrade, and I believe they had 2 penalties as well, along with those. They are currently at the bottom of the Swiss Super League through 5 matches, 3 losses, 2 draws. They are conceding 1.8 expected goals per 90 minutes. And it's not like their underlying metrics were even good in Switzerland last season. They only had a plus 0.4 expected goal differential per 90. And for those who don't know, when you're evaluating teams, you typically want to be well north of a +1 expected goal differential per 90 in your own domestic league if you're not coming from one of Europe's top 5 leagues. They are under a new manager. They're implementing a new system that really hasn't been working so far. So I have them projected to be underdogs in pretty much every single match that they have. Their schedule, comparatively to a lot of teams at the bottom, is more favorable, right? They get Inter and Barcelona out of pot 1. Atalanta they go away to Shakhtar. Then they host Red Star Belgrade again. They go away to Celtic. They host Villa, and then they go away to Stuttgart. Like, I have them projected as an underdog in every single match. And given the way they're playing in their own domestic league, I mean, I think they should be right that second favorite to finish at the bottom here, not sitting at like 4th or 5th on the board. So I like them at 8-1 to finish the bottom of this league phase, which is going to be an electric bet as we get towards the end. If Bratislava doesn't just put up a big 0.
Anthony, anything else?
No, excited for the new format. I think it's going to make for some really fun matchups that we don't usually get to see and more high-profile games. Even if I will miss kind of the late-stage group drama, let's be honest. Like the last 2 years weren't that good.
I think you'll still get it.
I think definitely.
The
just be different drama.
Concurrent matches on the final day of the group stage.
How many? Yeah, that's gonna.
How
be
many TVs BJ gonna have to buy to watch all 18?
I mean,
Like
I've got
6
5.
Paramount
I've got
Plus
5 right
accounts?
now, and I got 3 extras sitting in my office, so I might have to pull all of them out. But that's the thing is, I'm gonna have to like sign up for like 5 Paramount Plus accounts on a day, and then just like end up.
Well, they spread out the first round of matches over 3 days.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
we've got
that's
some
good.
really-
Okay, good.
We've got 6 matches per day. It's like 2 in the
Yeah.
early window, 4 late, 2, then 4, then 2, then 4. So
Okay.
the first week post international break, we've got some good ones. Milan, Liverpool, and Wednesday is City, Inter, and I believe Thursday is Arsenal at Atalanta. So some really good ones to start it.
I mean, it just kind of hammers your point home. It's like, this is so much better than the group stage. And if you don't believe me, just go Google what happened in the group stage last year and go look at all the groups that all these teams were in. Like, it was incredibly boring. So
There was like 2 good groups. Yeah.
there was, that was it. Like, I was looking through it. I was just like,
The group of death was fun.
Arsenal was in a group with, PSV, Lens, and Sevilla. Like, that's just incredibly boring. And like, same thing, like City was with Leipzig, and then, Belgrade and Young Boys. And then
City
Barcelona.
played
Well, that's just
City had
the
one
gap-
tough fixture. And
The
it was
gap
at
between
Leipzig.
the super elites is
Right.
and
It's
like
just
the,
like,
the
so now,
good
now
teams
we're
are just
actually
ridiculous. Yeah.
now we're actually forcing City to play somebody before the knockout, or before the quarterfinals, which is nice.
And we're gonna get some fun, like I don't know. I'm thinking about the matchups in the first week alone, right? Am I interested in Dortmund Club Brugge? For sure. Like Bologna Shakhtar, and then you've got Sporting versus Lille. Like there's all these like mid-tier.
Those are huge
matchups.
matches right
those are
there. If you're
big,
playing
big, big
somebody
ones,
from
yeah.
one of the pots that you're in, or even like a pot above or below, like that's an incredibly important match to you.
All right. That'll do it. For this, our preview. We will be back before match week 1 on the other side of the international break. Anthony's going to be popping in and out for these Champions League previews as well. BJ and I will be here next week for a look at the Premier League. I might beg out of that. Maybe just have BJ do it with Sam on his own because of my relationship with Everton right now, and just soccer in general is just really at a low point. But until then, thank you for
2
listening.
Sundays from now is the Derby.
Yeah.
Let's just.
I don't know what to say, Michael. I'm sorry.
There's nothing else to say.
I know.
I'm used to it at this point. But yeah, the island, NHL season's right around the corner.
Yeah, the Islanders.
I'm sure the Islanders will definitely pick me up.
You should just pick a new team.
No, he likes the pain.
Just become a Bright or Bees fan or something.
No, he likes the pain. Come on. He likes the pain.
We're going to be in League One in a couple years, but
new stadium though.
Yeah, in the new stadium. Anyways, that does it for this episode. Thank you for listening. Rate, review, and subscribe. Check out Anthony's work at The Ringer, and good luck with all your futures bets. We'll see you in a couple days.